My bosses wanted me to explain LIV Golf, a little explainer video. How do you explain LIV Golf? How do you explain that Phil Mickelson sold out? So we're going to make it a slow news day, but not the typical format. And it's about the news. We might do this again sometime. I don't want to, it's not going to be called slow news day. Fast news day, slow news day, fast times at slow news day. All right, we're going to workshop it. The logo is going to go right here. We're going to come up with a nice little logo and it's going to go right here. Bam! LIV Golf is a well-funded, Saudi-backed golf league that is now basically a AAA version of the PGA Tour. The problem for the PGA Tour is they've taken enough guys that the PGA Tour is also a AAA version of the PGA Tour. Take Dustin Johnson as an example of what the LIV Tour is offering top golfers. Dustin Johnson, he's won a Masters, he's won a US Open, he's one of the 20 best golfers in the world. They offered him over $100 million just to join. He can win $4 million during a given tournament. By the way, there are less tournaments in LIV than there are on the PGA Tour, which is something that, aside from the money, the golfers like. The NFL analogy to Dustin Johnson going for this much money, it's about 60% more than he's made in his entire career. So the NFL analogy is offering right now to join a rival football league, Aaron Rodgers, a 4-year, $436 million contract. Relative to career earnings, that's what we're looking at for a guy like Dustin Johnson going to LIV. Now, it trickles down from there. Pat Perez, a very good friend of Dustin Johnson, joined LIV, even though in Instagram comments, the most legally binding thing out there, he said he wouldn't last year. He said on June 28th, it's simple why I joined LIV Golf. I'm 46. I've been on the road since 1998. It's like winning the lottery for me. I couldn't be more excited. Charles Schwartzel won the first LIV event in London, which we're about to talk about in 1 second, and won more than last year's Masters champion. Here's Kevin Van Valkenburg from ESPN, who, by the way, was at that London event, on when he started to take LIV Golf seriously. When was the moment for you where you're like, oh, this is not only real, but it's gonna change the sport we love forever?
I think that they were building up to the Genesis Open. There was all kinds of rumors, and it didn't feel like a lot of golf media was taking it seriously. And I sort of feel like some of us within it were kind of like screaming from the rooftops, like, no, this is a huge, huge deal. This could dramatically alter the landscape. And I think we had heard sort of, rumors that Phil Mickelson was maneuvering behind the scenes to sort of recruit guys.
That doesn't sound like Phil.
Yeah, no, that Bryson was sort of, one of the main recruits that he was trying to get, and the DJ was as good as gone. And so in the months kind of from, I think, January to, March, I think all of that felt really, really serious, but hadn't kind of busted outside the golf bubble yet.
Guys who have pledged loyalty to the PGA Tour, Jon Rahm, Rory McIlroy, Jordan Spieth, Justin Thomas, are going to look around and say, why the hell is Pat Perez making more money than me? What the hell is going on with Pat Perez? Always a very good question to ask about Pat Perez, by the way. You reported that the Saudis have $2 billion that they're planning on spending. What is this fund? And aside from this, it was funny because we saw this a couple weeks ago where everyone says, oh, well, it's a conspiracy that the Saudis just want to improve their image. No, that's what they say on their website. So what is this, Kevin?
So the Public Investment Fund is essentially the money that Saudi Arabia has put aside to diversify their economy and to sort of increase tourism and really to sort of modernize their country. And they have a name for this. It's Vision 2030. It's a plan that they've laid out to sort of make very clear, we don't think that being an oil-rich country is a thing that can sort of last forever. And so the Public Investment Fund has sort of a footprint in a lot of different things around the world, whether it's investments in other sports leagues, investments in FedEx and Uber and stuff like that. And all of that is sort of meant to evolve the country away from oil eventually.
So they're out of oil. They're into Pat Perez and Abraham Answer.
Yes. A huge payoff is going to come from Pat Perez shooting 80 at the Portland LIV event, I would think, someday.
What we have now is nothing short of the golf version of a civil war. Tiger Woods came out on Tuesday and ripped the entire concept of the tour.
What these players are doing for guaranteed money. What is the incentive to practice? What is the incentive to go out there and earn it in the dirt? You're just getting paid a lot of money up front and playing a few events and playing 54 holes. They're trying to, playing blaring music.
Couple of things that are important. Number one, as Tiger alluded to, these are 54-hole, no-cut events, shotgun start. They happen very quickly. You're not spending the entire day at the golf course. But the fact that they're no-cut makes these very complicated to watch. Phil Mickelson shot 10 over at the first event and didn't do much better in Portland. And you might end up with a sort of senior tour-esque situation where you have some of the older, top injury-prone golfers limping around 54 holes, not playing very well, and realizing that the reason they have cuts in golf is because really nobody likes to see bad golf, especially on a Saturday. This can get very depressing very quickly. Rory McIlroy, who is basically the captain of the PGA Tour at this point, said last week, there is no room in the golf world for LIV Golf. I don't agree with what LIV is doing. If LIV went away tomorrow, I'd be super happy. Now, the number one argument right now from the PGA Tour at the beginning was morality. PGA Commissioner Jay Monahan came out and said, you never have to apologize for joining the PGA Tour as you would for the LIV Tour because of the Saudi backing, because of the stories about sports washing, because of the connections to 9/11, which Phil Mickelson had to address now at a handful of press conferences.
We feel the deepest of sympathy and the deepest of empathy for those that have lost loved ones, friends, in 9/11. It affected all of us and those that have been directly affected. I think I can't emphasize enough how much empathy I have for them.
The second part of it is major championships. Now, major championships are the reason that there's some doubt over guys. Maybe they're trying to leave in October of this year after a full PGA Tour, whatever it is. The big question is whether or not LIV will ever qualify for official Golf World Rankings points, which would then let these guys go into the majors, the British Open, the Masters, the US Open, the PGA. If that happened, then you'd see lots of guys take tens of millions of dollars or $100 million to go play 14 LIV events a year, which is going to be apparently what the future schedule looks like. It is the big question. Is the Masters going to draw a line in the sand? Is the US Open going to draw a line in the sand? They're playing the British Open this week. All of the LIV golfers who qualified will be there. With the tour response, which was, we're at war, these guys are suspended, it's being investigated by the DOJ. It doesn't seem maybe all that enforceable over the long haul. We have no idea what's going to happen with the majors. We have no idea if the Masters is going to want to make their tournament worse because of a turf war between tours that they have no involvement or affiliation with. What does the PGA need to do to win this, if it's at all possible, Kev?
That's a sort of an unanswerable question at this moment. I mean, I don't think how we can, as sports writers, really guess how the Sherman Act is going to be applied and the PGA's status as a nonprofit and what evidence might be admissible in this case and how long discovery might take. I mean, LIV could theoretically win this case, but it might take 5-6 years working its way through the justice system. We could have a change in administrations that might bring different kind of politics into the Justice Department. It's almost impossible. There's so many moving pieces to speculate. I think what we are probably most likely headed towards is a sort of a Phil Mickelson versus the PGA Tour lawsuit. Phil has sort of made it very clear that he doesn't intend to give up his lifetime membership. And legal scholars might tell you that he probably has a decent case of, if you earn a lifetime membership of the PGA Tour, how can they sort of then go back and revoke that after the fact? The other side would be that it's literally like in the bylaws that if you do something to sort of damage the organization of which you've been a part of for 20, 30 years, that you can be, exercised from it.
If you're LIV, what's the next move for you? Is it to get more of the top 20 through 40 and try to choke it out? Is it to get more Pat Perez's and overpay and start to piss off Justin Thomas? Or is it just try to give Jordan Spieth $500 million and kill the tour?
I think that there's a decent chance that LIV doesn't actually want to kill the tour. They just want to sort of be the premier sort of thing in golf. And they would like it if sort of, you could go back and forth. I mean, this was Greg Norman's dream always, was just that the top guys could make what he saw as their market value, not necessarily that it would ruin golf and sort of, cripple the little guys out there. And so I think if you're LIV, what you're probably doing is just continuing to sort of sell this idea that, hey, this is a really fun format. You get to get paid a ton of money. Like eventually the world ranking points stuff will take care of itself.
So another problem the PGA Tour faces is the morality angle might not last that long. The majors might allow LIV golfers. And then the biggest problem, which is as of now, when given the chance, fans have mostly cheered guys like Phil Mickelson.
As a fan experience, I think that the fans got a lot out of it. They sort of loved it. I mean, I tried to keep the perspective of, right, like this is what sort of sports washing is supposed to kind of do, is make you forget.
Fans did not care.
No, they truly didn't. And that would seem to be the case in Portland too. And so ultimately, like each person has to kind of decide whether they're comfortable with whether they care or not. And it's not my job to sort of tell you, yes, you should care, yes, you shouldn't. I'm just going to present to you as much of the information as I can. And so that's why I was like calling the 9/11 families and seeing how they felt, and talking to, a woman whose sister had been tortured for advocating for women to be able to drive, and to sort of end the policies there basically say women can't get married or can't go to school or can't travel without their husband's permission. So all of that was kind of the backdrop of guys spraying champagne on each other.
So then another problem. LIV last week went up against the John Deere. I don't know. I think both entities are overrating how much people watch golf on a week-to-week basis. A few million people. If you don't have control of the Masters, you don't have control of the US Open. It's not like sports fans en masse are going to flock to your event. But the PGA Tour is a little weak. It is a little stale on TV. And stealing everything from LIV is not going to be the answer, but a chance for a little bit of modernity isn't going to be a bad thing. It's not like LIV is just wall-to-wall bad ideas. What does the PGA borrow if they win the Civil War?
They seem a little bit reluctant to embrace like a team element, which I think is sort of the wrong decision, because I think legitimately, as you're a big F1 fan, like if you had a Rory team and Rory had like an aging Tiger Woods on his team of 4 guys, whatever, and in the off weeks of not PGA Tour events, like instead of watching the Barbasol, if you could watch an event where 4 guys who you were sort of really invested in were competing for some sort of, larger prize, you could feel like invested in that.
So what happens next? Well, I have a question. What sports couldn't be disrupted by $2 billion of investment? What if an NFL rival started next year? Okay, well, they could take, hypothetically, Aaron Rodgers and that $400 million contract I talked about earlier. Maybe they take Justin Herbert. Maybe they take Josh Allen. Maybe Patrick Mahomes stays in the NFL. What is it that keeps you watching the NFL? I would argue that you could hire Matt LaFleur to a new league for quadruple his salary. You could maybe even get Aaron Rodgers. But what I think works in concert together, the reason the NFL works is because you have Aaron Rodgers being coached by Matt LaFleur in Lambeau Field on a crisp October day. It all comes together. It's not something you can put your finger on. It's not something you can describe. It's not something you can buy. And what the PGA Tour needs to hope is on the week to week, they have that same sort of pool and that fans have that sort of emotional attachment. You can buy a lot of things, but sentiment is not one of them. The most analogous thing to all of this is the Soccer Super League, which decided they were going to break away from the modern European soccer structure, similar to LIV Golf, not have any relegation within it, maybe have some rules on how you could work yourself, how other teams could work their way up, but creating a radically different structure disconnected from everything else that we've ever known. The difference here is that Chelsea fans went out and took to the streets and stopped the bus, didn't let them go out, and nobody cares enough to stop Matthew Wolff. There's no Matthew Wolff bus being blocked. Kevin Na, Louis Duzian, let him go. That's the problem, is there's no urgency. So I guess the question is, Kevin, what's the end game?
LIV people will dispute this, but I don't think deep down that there is really any expectation that LIV Golf will ever be a profitable enterprise.
Right. I was going to ask about that.
But what it might do is basically make people in Silicon Valley say, you know what? Like those golfers all went over there and did that. Nobody canceled them. Nobody sort of told them that they were sort of excised from American society. So maybe we can kind of do that. And it just sort of further softens the image of a country that continues to sort of, run afoul with human rights organizations.
So that's it. That's the explainer. There's an unending civil war in golf that is just going to last forever. And it may take decades to figure out. It may take years to figure out even what's legal within the court system. So if you like golf, grab a beer. It's going to be a while.